Hello and welcome to the River Lee in North London. There are hundreds and hundreds of liveaboard boaters in London and more joining every year, which means increased competition for mooring spots as well as the relatively few facilities. Plus, with the Canal and River Trust's continuous cruising rules, meaning that you've got to move on every 14 days unless you have a permanent mooring, and those are relatively rare and very expensive, it means competition for everything is tough. So what's it like being a London liveaboard? That's what I'm here to find out.
And I'll be doing so by going for a cruise aboard this boat, Viceroy, owned by artist Riikka Hyvönen, who travels with her canine companion Bowie, the Siberian Husky. He's beautiful but quite loud, and tried to hump my leg. Riikka's other floating companion is her inflatable flamingo, which she sits on in the evenings while drinking champagne. We were going to cruise south along the Lee further into London, but the flamingo needed repositioning first so it could be towed safely. I was to find out that the combination of a striking-looking dog and a pink flamingo meant we would not be travelling in stealth mode. With the tiller attached, Riikka could undo the bow and stern lines. The gearbox was slipped into drive and off we chugged to a soundtrack of diesel engine and dog, and Riikka explained why she lives aboard.
I think I've always been fascinated by boats. When I got to London for the first time and I actually realised that people live on boats, I just got so excited. I've spent my childhood on caravans, so it's kind of the same, but different. But in Finland and Lapland. But I like the idea of freedom, moving around. So that kind of fascinated me. And I lived in a log cottage for a year and a half. So after that, I decided I needed to get my own boat.
But is the dog happy?
Bowie loves it. He's not a big fan of moving the boat because he doesn't like me leaving the boat. But he loves being on the roof, seeing birds, seeing other people, seeing other dogs. He loves being outside, so he just refuses to go in.
Boating in urban areas has never been my favourite. I prefer countryside scenery than industrial parks and built-up housing. But if you need to live around here, as many people do for their work, then this is the kind of outlook you'll have as you go along. As you can see, there are a lot of boats on the Lee navigation. The Canal and River Trust says that's in part because you can buy a boat licence for rivers only, not the canals, and it's a lot cheaper. So boaters who have that licence have to cluster along here as they can't go into the canals in central London without paying more money. With so many needing to access facilities like sewage and water points, congestion can be inevitable.
I think the longest time I've queued was in Hackney Wick, and it was like 4 hours, and on Sunday. So obviously if you want to fill your water tank, you should go, Monday to Friday, not go there during the weekends. But sometimes, obviously, if you work Monday to Friday, you can't do it. I've realised that it's just easier not to use Canal and River Trust places and go to the private marinas.
Some facilities will come to you though. Here's the local fuel boat delivering coal, gas and diesel. I've done a video about a day in the life of a fuel boat, and I've left a link to that in the description below. A boat trip is not complete without a glimpse of a heron. Riikka is one of London's many so-called continuous cruisers, that is, those who don't have a permanent mooring but can stop at various points along the river or canal bank for up to 2 weeks at a time before moving on. But with so many boats here, having to breast up by another is inevitable.
In London, you do need to double moor. It doesn't matter where you go, you're going to be next to someone. So you do need to realise that you're going to be close to people all the time if you want to be in central London. Obviously, if you go somewhere else, a bit further, then it's fine. Here, yeah, it is packed. If they are in, I knock and ask if it's okay. Some people have notes on their windows saying double mooring welcome. Some people say that no double mooring. If they're not in, I just leave my phone number and a note saying that this is me, I'm here, I hope it's okay.
We motored past a friend of Rika's on a boat she's doing up. She says boaters tend mostly to have a mutual bond.
I think there is a really strong community feel. I think there's a real sort of sense of looking out for your neighbour, but then you also have dickheads. We're not like a homogeneous group of people. And I think sometimes that what happens is that people have this idea, oh, it's going to be all like amazing and everyone's together in the same spirit. But, it's real people with real lives and real attitudes at times, I think.
A mix of people and an eclectic mix of boats too. There's always something interesting to see on London's waterways. These boats were moored at Stonebridge Lock Boatyard, which meant we were about to go through that lock, dropping the boat down by 6 feet 6 inches. But there was an obstacle in the way, a sunken boat on the lock landing. It's been there for months, Rika told me, with no sign of the authorities lifting it out. So we squeezed past it, to Bowie's obvious disapproval. With me filming, Rika tackled this single-handed, as she normally would, though Bowie needed regular reassurance. Fortunately, the locks along here are automated with hydraulic sluices and gates, so all you have to do is press some buttons in sequence, and the instructions are very clear. The rear gates closed. You'll be relieved to know they didn't snag the pink flamingo as they shut. And then the sluices at the bottom let the water out. The boat descended gently. I made myself useful by pressing the button to open the lower gates so Rika could climb back aboard and take the boat out. We weren't heading for a particular destination. Rika just needed to move on after her 14 days had elapsed. But whilst these boats here have long-term moorings, more than half the boats in London are continuous cruisers, all shuffling around every fortnight trying to find a new spot. So the quest for somewhere to stop can be frustrating.
And is that mostly to do with...
This looked like it should be perfect, but the fact no one was there gave a clue. The water's far too shallow to get a boat into the side, and there's a distinct tension between boaters and the authorities.
Canal and River Trust taking away a lot of mooring spots. That is going to make our life even more difficult.
Rika's referring to what the Canal and River Trust call water safety zones, which they're enforcing at Broxbourne and from here, just after Tottenham Lock, all the way down to West Ham's football ground. That makes over 6 miles of the river with sections where you can't double moor or even moor at all. And you can see as you go along that it's causing a lot of anger amongst the boaters.
Oh, it's a war. Yeah. So it feels like a dictatorship. They're making the rules, not listening to us at all.
I think the reality that should be acknowledged is that there's a huge amount of people living on boats in London, and whether a charity like CRT is the right body to be trying to manage this kind of situation, and because it doesn't really fall under any council, and I think that's a real conversation that needs to be had. And I think if it's not really acknowledged that in London boats are homes for a huge number of people, these kind of issues where I think both the boaters and CRT are frustrated.
The idea of the zones is to make sure other waterways users, like the people at this rowing club, have unfettered and safe use of the river as well. I asked the CRT whether they're striking the right balance, and they told me boaters are part of the fabric of London's canals, but in the past decade the number here has more than doubled, and even more so on the Lee navigation. We must manage the limited space so it's shared safely and fairly for everyone. The no mooring areas have never been suitable for mooring, and this year we've added 3/4 of a mile of towpath moorings in central London. It begs the question, why don't boaters just buy a mooring and save themselves the hassle? The reason is cost.
We're paying £1,000 a month for just a mooring on top of the rest is usually just impossible.
£1,000 a month is a lot of dosh in anyone's book, but especially for people who've turned to boats because they can't afford the horrific rents and costs of land living in the capital. And like it or not, London is where a lot of the jobs are, so people here are in a bit of a no-win situation financially.
Buying a boat because of money is the worst reason what you can do. You need to love the lifestyle. You're gonna suffer if you think that it's the same as living in a flat and just buying a flat but cheaper.
Speaking of the lifestyle, living on a boat certainly does bring benefits, like taking your home with you to the pub when you want a spot of lunch, as we did by that point. We rudely ignored the no mooring sign while we stopped for a pie and a pint. Well, we weren't really mooring, just pausing for lunch. Afterwards we headed on again, in what seemed to my eyes to be a fruitless search for a place to moor. Everywhere was already taken, boat after boat after boat. With all the trees and greenery, you wouldn't think you were in the London outskirts though. Just the occasional glimpse of offices and houses gave it away. But being in the big city prompts that other fear, security.
I think I'm a bit more probably knowledgeable these days about where I want to moor. I've become a little bit more aware of security and not leaving my boat alone for long periods of times. Always having like a boat sitter if I'm away. I think it makes you a little bit nervous, but also, I think things like I have a dog that at least looks a bit scary makes you feel more secure. And I think if you're prone to being really anxious about things like that, it's probably not the right lifestyle.
Rika's own boat was broken into and ransacked just a few weeks ago, so picking a safe spot has become even more crucial. As we continued south, the CRT's map of the safety zones was consulted. Unfortunately, it's just a PDF document which can't show your current position. That does make working out where you can and can't stop a bit tricky. But eventually we pulled in alongside another boat, and Rika was happy to stop here for at least that night. Despite all the drawbacks, she says she wouldn't swap boat life.
I love boats. I love narrow boats. I love the freedom. I can go wherever, whenever. Just got here. This is where I live now. It's exciting.
In case you're wondering, yes, the pink flamingo made it safely too, peering in the windows of the next door boat. And this is how I ended my trip. Thanks for watching. Cheerio.